What is the public purpose of marriage?
The issue is whether or not either two men or two women should be allowed to legally be married.
Social science shows this to be true. The gold standard is for a child to be raised by their married biological parents.
The Defense of Marriage Act, which is a federal law that defines marriage between one man and one woman.
Gay people do that just like heterosexual people do.
Parents' sexuality will influence the child.
Without marriage equality, have had to really struggle in life.
According to the United States 2010 census, there are 646,464 gay households in America. Should these couples be legally allowed to marry? A conservative point of view is that marriage historically is recognized as an institution that has two purposes: to support each other and to support offspring. A liberal point of view is that marriage should not be about the historical societal norms, but should be about the committed relationship.
What is the public purpose of marriage? Why is government involved in marriage at all? Marriage it's an institution that predates our government here in the United States. That predates, many governments. It's something that is universal, really. It's universally recognized as a relationship between male and female, for the most part. Well, pretty much exclusively. And I think it has two purposes, really, and that is to care for each other and to care for offspring.
The issue of gay marriage is important to me because I've been in a committed relationship for 28 years without the benefits and privileges that marriage affords people in this.
A liberal point of view is that people are healthier and happier when in supported relationships. A conservative would say that we need to provide for our offspring and the future generation. A gay couple cannot do that.
The basic ethical principles, two of the basic ethical principles that all ethicists would agree on is, first of all, do no harm, or do as little harm as possible. And the second is do as much good as possible in any given situation. It does a tremendous amount of harm to gay people to exclude them from a basic institution of our society, namely marriage. To be excluded from that leaves gay people without the support and the structure we need to live in the healthiest way.
The government is involved, again, because they want there to be a committed couple taking care of offspring, and the government does want to promote offspring. Again, if culture is going to survive, there has to be a next generation. Right. And clearly that only happens with a male. Let's leave aside scientific advances right now, because I think that's an entirely different discussion. But the propagation of offspring only happens with male-female relationships.
Gay marriage advocates say that without the legal support of marriage, it can be difficult to raise a child. Conservatives say that a male and a female both bring different things to raising a child.
All the issues involved with parenting a child or children that you have no legal connection to.
That was probably more of an issue for Eileen than it was for me because I'm the birth mom of two of the three kids. So I could do things with them at school and take them to doctor's appointments, and there was no question. And that was difficult for Eileen to do.
Well, and for a lot of years I was the stay-at-home parent, so it was always complicated.
The gold standard is for a child to be raised by their married biological parents. When you look at any other relationship, whether it's a cohabiting heterosexual couple, step-parents, a single parent, those are not as good as the married biological parents. And again, social science shows that a child is more likely to suffer or live through poverty if they are not growing up with their married biological parents. They're more likely to engage in delinquent behavior or perhaps drop out of school, and, more likely to consume substances, alcohol, or smoke, what have you.
Gay marriage advocates say that marriage leads to more productive lives regardless of sexual orientation, which benefits society as a whole. Conservatives say that redefining a core societal belief, such as marriage, diminishes its value and undermines society as a whole.
when gay people are in healthy relationships, strong relationships, then that reverberates out to the rest of society. So it's good for families, for the larger families of gay people. When gay people are affirmed as couples, then they're not ostracized from their own families. When gay people are affirmed in their own churches, they're fully part of those churches. They can be involved and contribute. When they're affirmed in their relationships, in their work situations with a larger society, again, they have the energy to participate, to thrive, and contribute to be productive citizens of society. And so it's really best, not only for gay people themselves and for the relationships, but it's really best for society as a whole. And so I really believe that we need to extend marriage for the good of society beyond opposite sex couples to gay couples. And we'll be better off for it.
Anytime you begin to redefine things in a way that our culture has not viewed it in the past, you do create, in some ways, an element of confusion and a lessening of what that institution is or has been. It's a little bit like, imagine we've always defined a cow as being this rather large animal on four legs, mammal that gives milk. Well, a goat is somewhat similar to a cow in those regards. But if you start, if you pass a law and says, from now on we're gonna call goats cows as well. Well, then when you go to the marketplace to try and sell your cow, somebody's gonna say, well, wait a minute, well, what kind of cow exactly are you talking about?
Liberals say that gay marriage should be legalized because it poses no threat to heterosexual marriage. Conservatives bring up the point that DOMA, a federal law, states that marriage is between a man and a woman.
Michigan passed a constitutional amendment a few years ago, and Meg and I both worked on
The phone bank.
in the phone banks to just make calls to people, to voters, to encourage them to vote against Prop 2, which basically made it unconstitutional for Michigan to allow same-sex marriages.
The courts would have to strike down that law. Then you would have to think of something else, such as a federal marriage amendment. But we haven't reached that stage yet. But
Okay.
we favor the current law, which is one man and one woman.
Meg and I living together in our little house and we are somehow a threat to heterosexual marriage is just
really.
it's ridiculous. It's comically ridiculous.
Gay marriage advocates say that either everyone should be allowed to marry or no one should be allowed to marry. Conservatives say that homosexual marriage and heterosexual marriage are not equal and therefore should not be equal under law.
The main point is equality. If we're either all entitled to this or none of us are entitled to this.
Yeah, I think that's the main thrust.
I mean, and that's ultimately when that Proposal 2 issue was going on, I was still sort of in my we don't need to get married phase, and that made me realize it's not about whether or not you want to get married, it's about having the right to get married if you want to. It's about equality. Like everyone either has that right or nobody should have it.
How does one couple's, regardless of their sexual orientation, how does that weaken another person's marriage? And clearly it doesn't. I mean, the people across the street, their marriage has no effect on my marriage. But when you begin to culturally redefine things so that it's no longer recognizable as it has always been, that is what can, in the long run, kind of help have a deleterious effect on marriage. What is the public purpose of marriage? Why is government involved in marriage at all? And we're not saying that there shouldn't be opportunities to care for others in other relationships at all. Okay, don't get me wrong in that. We're not saying that there shouldn't be mechanisms in place where people who do care for each other, love each other, are able to take care of one another. What we're saying is, don't change the definition of what marriage has always been.
I also don't know that I am necessarily for marriage per se in a religious sense. A domestic partnership or domestic union would be fine with me.